In this video, we're going to go ahead and talk about rhythm. Now, rhythm really just means timing and length of notes, how long we hold notes and when notes occur. With every single note that we have as pianists and as musicians, we specifically also have a corresponding rest. So you'll notice over here that I've drawn in the notes and then the rests, okay? So we start with specifically this note, which kind of looks like a donut, and then a rest that looks like almost a pit that someone could fall into. Now this one is specifically 4 beats. We call this specifically the whole note or the whole rest. Now the funny thing about the whole rest is that whenever you see it on a piece of music, oftentimes on the 5 lines of the staff, this will sit and hang off of the 4th line. So just imagine this top line that's here is actually the 4th line of your staff, and it just hangs off. This kind of black rectangle just hangs off of the 4th line. In terms of the next one here, we have a dot on a half note, and again, it kind of looks like a top hat with a dot right next to it, but this one's 3 counts. We call this a dotted half note or dotted half rest. So again, we oftentimes think that the whole note almost looks like a hole that someone could fall into, and then the dotted half note, or even the half note, or the half rest, I mean, specifically looks like a top hat. Then we have specifically this one, again, not filled in, has a stem. We have that top hat, again, 2 beats. We call these half notes, half rest, right? Then we keep going. Here we have a dot on a quarter note. We have a quarter rest with a dot. This one's specifically a little bit trickier, but this is 1.5 beats, usually. And we call this a dotted quarter note. So again, when you see that dot on the side, we end up calling it dotted. So it's either a dotted quarter note or a dotted quarter rest. Here we just have a regular quarter note with a quarter rest, 1 beat. Okay, quarter note, quarter rest. Here we have the 8th note, which whenever we see it, the rest looks like this. It's half of a beat. But again, we have an 8th note, 8th rest. Oftentimes, whenever you see multiple 8th notes together, that's where things can get a little bit tricky. We call this little part that extends off of the 8th note a flag. So again, this part specifically right here is what we call a flag, okay? Now, whenever we end up seeing 2 of them together, oftentimes kind of like cherries, we actually go ahead and we stick them together in pairs. And they can even be longer than pairs. But we call this right here, this line that connects everything, we actually call this a beam. So we call this a beam. So, and this actually happens for all sorts of other things. So when we talk here about the 16th note, again, you'll notice that the 16th note has now 2 flags, and then even the rest itself actually has 2 different parts to it. This is a quarter of a beat. Again, we call this the 16th note or 16th rest. The way that we would end up drawing this, similarly to the 8th note, again, we would have, when we have 2 or more of them, we go ahead and not only have 1 beam, but again, much like how the 16th note has 2 flags, we would have 2 beams like this. Okay. Now, these rhythms and these timings are very, very important for our music. And of course, our music is then organized into different groupings. Now, in music, we have this thing which we, of course, call the time signature. You'll always see it at the very, very beginning of your music. The time signature has 2 parts, what we call the numerator and the denominator. It's the same thing kind of like fractions, and music and math are very, very related to one another. So the top number specifically means the number of beats that we have per measure. Now, you might be wondering what a beat is. A beat is just a regular unit of measurement. So it's how we measure our music. So it's kind of like if someone came up to you and asked, okay, how long is a centimeter? Or how long is an inch, right? We can use comparisons, right, to say, oh, that's an inch or that's a centimeter, but again, there isn't really a way that we can say, oh, this is a centimeter. It's usually based on comparison of distances. And so whenever we're going through, we have to be able to define, okay, what exactly is a beat, right? We have 4 of them, but what is a beat? And that's what the bottom number is for. So the bottom number is specifically the note type that is 1 beat. So depending on what number that is, it'll be a different note. So here, because it's a 4 on the bottom, the quarter note is 1 beat. If there was an 8 on bottom, it would be an 8th note gets the beat. If there was a 16 on bottom, it would be the 16th note. If there was a 2 on bottom, it would be the half note. Okay. Now, in terms of here, we have a couple of examples of measures where we have 3, 4, and then specifically 2, 2. Now, what's really, really interesting is that, again, the reason why we have these time signatures is in order to organize our music. The way that we do that is into measures, as we call it, and they're separated by what we call either a measure or a bar line. But again, when we see 3, 4, we would have 3 beats per measure with the 4 on bottom, meaning that 1 beat is equal to a quarter note. So as you can see here, as I'm counting through and writing in counts, I would have 1, 2, 3, so 3 quarter notes, and then I would have that measure line, which is correct. Then we have a half note, which is a half note is worth 2 quarter notes. So that would mean that we would have 1, 2 in that first one, and then that would be beat number 3. And then we have a dotted half note, which is worth 3 beats, and so that takes up an entire measure. And of course we have our double bar line to show and indicate that it's the end of the song or the end of the music that we see. Down here, all of a sudden we have 2, 2. Now here we have 2 beats per measure. On bottom, because there's a 2, it specifically means that 1 beat is actually equal to a half note. And so what we end up seeing is that, again, here we would end up having beat 1, and then this would be beat 2. Here we would have a half rest, so that's beat number 1. This is beat number 2. And then here we have a whole note, that would be beats 1 and 2 together. Okay? Now, something that we can do is that we can go ahead and now take on this rhythm/time signature worksheet. And there's a separate video on how to do that. But this has been a short and quick explanation of rhythm and how to understand timing, length, and specifically time signatures.